Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. My co-host, beautiful Terry. Please introduce yourselves, ladies, and we will be sharing our first presenter this morning. Terry, starting with you.
I am Terry Weems from the state of Indiana in the United States. I am also a podcast host, and Gertrude will be my co-host for an upcoming podcast called Crossroad. Stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Terry. And the beautiful Erin Washington, who is opening up the day today. Terry, you've got her bio?
Yes, I do.
So the deal is, Erin, you're going to speak for 15 minutes before we come in with our questions, our comments, and we'll pick your brain and see who you are and what you're all about.
Amazing. Buckle up.
Actually, before you read Erin's bio, let me just play our little commercial so people get to know who we are. Then we'll get started straight after that. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Oops.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and we are back again with an amazing lineup of speakers. The HerStory Online Summit runs for 11 days every single month, and we bring you women who talk about business and entrepreneurship, health and wellness, family and relationships, creativity, social justice, and spirituality. So before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. I would also like to pay respect to all of my ancestors whose shoulders I stand on as I do this work as a social impact serial social entrepreneur. So our vision with HerStory is to impact as many women and children across the globe as possible. We raise money for social impact by curating these stories into a series of books, magazines. We have a podcast. So please go onto our website, theherstorycircle.com, contribute, donate if you like, step up and come and speak and be a part of this amazing movement. So we're going to start every single summit with this beautiful song that was sung by a group of women who started a movement to bring women together and try and bring an end to all these wars that are devastating our world. So thank you for sharing this song. Thank you for allowing us to sing it with you wherever we are in the world. So here we go.
This is a call to all our sisters, the women of the world, to take part in the creation of a new video clip. War is not a woman's game. For too many years, we have been collaborating with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. For too long, we have been stripped of our liberty by the story of separation. This is not our language. It is not our way. War is not a woman's game. It is time for the givers of life to protect it. Women of Ukraine, you are not alone. Women of Russia, you are not alone. Women of Palestine, you are not alone. Women of Syria, you are not alone. Women of Israel, USA, Africa, India, Asia, Europe, Australia, North America, South America, North Korea, South Korea, China, Tibet, Afghanistan. You are not alone. Girls, young women, old women, witches, businesswomen, caretakers, fairies, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, men, trans, fluid. Let's show the world we're here. Let us start with a song, with a statement, with a prayer. I invite you to take part in the creation of this international ceremonial video clip by sending me videos of you singing this song, celebrating femininity, stepping into your power. If you feel this calling inside you, please write it here in the comments, and we'll send you more instructions. Because what? War is not a woman's game. And then we start to sing it. Come on. Yeah.
All right. What a beautiful start to our day. Thank you, Miss Terry. Let's introduce our first speaker.
Okay, our first speaker for today, Erin Washington, is a lifestyle blogger and former college athlete who struggled with weight and body image for 20 years. She finally found her best body at 37 after having 2 kids. Erin promotes a balanced lifestyle of squats and margaritas and offer tips and motivation to women who are working out but not seeing results. Erin wrote her first book, Squats and Margaritas, A Journey to Finding Balance, in 2020 and is currently working on a second edition. She hosts the top wellness podcast, Squats and Margaritas, on Podcast One, and recently founded Blue Butterfly Foundation to help inspire teenage girls struggling with mental health and self-worth. Erin currently resides in the Atlanta area with her husband and 2 children. I introduce to you today Erin Washington. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Should I tell my story?
Yes.
Okay. My story, I guess I'll start. I grew up in Ohio. I was the oldest of 4 sisters. And from as long as I can remember, I was completely obsessed with soccer. I ended up starting varsity soccer in high school as a freshman. and came into high school super thin because I was 14. And sophomore year, when I was 15, started my period, my body changed, I started gaining weight. And that was not ideal for soccer. So at 15, I started drastically reducing my calories. There was a point where I wouldn't eat carrots because they were a starchy carbohydrate. I would come home from school and make myself take naps because it was time that I wasn't eating, and eventually got super skinny. Junior year, my head coach, kind of pulled me aside and was like, your crosses aren't strong anymore. You've lost all the strength in your legs. You're getting too skinny. And when he equated it to soccer, I was like, oh, soccer is the only thing that matters. Soccer is my value and my worth. I got to eat. But it was at that point that my eating disorder evolved from anorexia to exercise bulimia. I would jot down every calorie that I consumed on little note cards and then find the nearest elliptical machine and work off the exact amount of calories, calories in versus calories out. Figured I was canceling it out. And that went on for the rest of my high school career. We were back-to-back state champions in soccer. I was captain my junior and senior year. I was also homecoming queen and prom queen, but that didn't matter to me. Like, soccer, for some reason, was my worth, my value, and my identity. And I was completely obsessed with it. I trained all summer long going into my college season. I got a Division I college soccer scholarship, came in, won our preseason beep test, like the conditioning test, and was ready to go. And the season started and I didn't play. And I didn't know what to do with that. In high school, I never came off the field. And I felt like I was contributing in practice. I was giving everything to soccer and I wasn't seeing the playing time. So I felt like it ultimately wasn't fair. And almost on a whim, about halfway through my sophomore season, I quit soccer. And I didn't really think it through. I went back to my soccer house where I lived, and all my teammates would go to practice every day. They would leave and go to away trips. And I fell into complete depression. The only worth and value that I ever felt for myself was gone in an instant. And working out 40 minutes on the elliptical at the student rec didn't quite get the job done like a Division I strength and conditioning program. So I started gaining weight. And initially, I think that I found bulimia as a way to try to get rid of the extra weight, throw up the calories that I was eating, the extra calories. But what it became was something that completely took over my life for the next decade. It was all I thought about. It completely consumed me. The next time I could binge and purge, I hid it from 5 girls that I live with. And during this time, I was a sophomore in college and just in complete depression, throwing up my food every day. Like, what better time than to get into a relationship? So that's what I did. And he was the big man on campus, like the star basketball player. And at a bar on campus one night, I found out that he was interested in me. And it was the validation that I needed at the time when I wasn't feeling any self-worth. And I held on tight, even finding out that he had recently had a child, very recently, with someone else. Even after the mother of the child confronted me at a basketball game and told me they were still together. He said they weren't. So that was enough for me. Just kind of to show you where my head was at this point. I had no self-worth and he was important. And it was like important people like me. And it was validation. And I continued dating him for a year and a half. That relationship completely wrecked my family. They were not so fond of my choice to date a new father. So when I graduated college, like the last place I wanted to go was back home to Ohio where my family was. So when my neighbor said that a friend of his in Washington, D.C. was hiring an executive assistant, I interviewed and I took the job and I moved to Washington, D.C. a month after college, knowing nobody. And my salary, I believe, was $27,000. It didn't afford me a lot of housing options in D.C. So I actually had to live in Herndon, Virginia, at like maybe 20 miles outside of DC. I would take 2 buses to a metro, then take the metro into the city, walk to work, same situation back. I did it for about 6 months and was losing my mind. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up getting a second job. I worked my 9 to 5 as the executive assistant to the senior vice president of CBS Sports. 5 o'clock, I would change into my tuxedo, go across the street to a fine dining restaurant where I was a server. And I made enough money to move into DC to an apartment that was quite literally the size of my current closet, just a room. And on Friday, I would come home from work, go into my little room, and not come out till Monday when I would go to work. I was completely depressed, and I had no friends or family, just didn't see any worth or value in my life. And then one day I went to my CBS Sports job, and my boss said, I have an opportunity. I can't tell you much about it, but I want to take you with me. So my life was in shambles, but apparently I was one hell of an executive assistant at the time. So we go, and the job is starting a broadcast department for the Washington Redskins, who are now the Commanders. And I find myself on TV in Washington, DC, interviewing the players. And DC is a top 8 market, or it was at the time. And I didn't go to school for broadcasting. And I was like, this is so cool. In hindsight, I think the boss was like, I think these players would be more likely to talk to a 24-year-old girl versus a 50-something-year-old man. So he would send me, I would interview the players, and everything was great until I would see the playback of myself on TV. And I was just bloated and puffy and still in my bulimia. Obviously, nobody knew. And when I saw myself, I was disgusted. And I told him immediately, I don't want to be on camera anymore. And I was just going to be a producer. And I was quickly replaced by a Redskin cheerleader who was very comfortable on camera. When I got to the Redskins, though, they made me sign something saying that I wouldn't date a player or a coach. And I remember signing this, like, who would be stupid enough to talk to one of these players or coaches? Then about a month later, I saw my now husband, and we dated for about a year. Obviously, nobody knew because I didn't want to lose my job. But it got to the point where it was serious. I had met his family at this point. I'd been to a family reunion, and I ended up leaving the Redskins. So now it should be great. Like, I can date my boyfriend in public, and we can go out to dinner. And we would do that, but he was in the prime of his career, and we'd be having a wonderful conversation, and then someone would spot him. And it was usually a thin, skinny, blonde, beautiful girl. They would come to the table and they'd want a picture, an autograph, or just to chat him up. And immediately I would go into my head. And it didn't matter what he said to me the rest of the night. Like, I was done. I was just like, I couldn't understand what he was doing with me and what he saw in me. Again, he was in the prime of his career. He could have had anybody he wanted. And I couldn't understand why he was with me. I didn't see it in myself. I didn't see my worth. During that time when he was in the shower, I was in his phone, making sure he wasn't cheating on me. There was like a website where like groupies would go and put in all their stories about NFL players. I typed his name into that website every single day, completely obsessed. But the thing about this is my obsession with the relationship, all my energy was channeled there, and my bulimia kind of fell away. So at this point, I'm not throwing out my food anymore. I'm dating my husband, and we get engaged, and we're getting ready for the wedding. I'm not, again, abusing my body, but I'm still completely restricting, living with deprivation. And I was about 15 pounds heavier than I am now. We get married, and 9 months later, our beautiful daughter Amaya was born, and my husband got a job in San Diego coaching college football. So I had just had a baby, and I moved to San Diego, where I don't know anyone again. I didn't really see my husband because he had 14-hour work days, and I had baby weight that I needed to lose. And I was frustrated and short with him because I didn't have anybody that could watch my daughter, so I couldn't work out. And then one day I was strolling my daughter around downtown La Jolla, and there was a girl sitting outside of an Orange Theory Fitness. She was on her break. She said she was a nanny. And we worked it out that when she took her breaks, I would bring my daughter in her stroller. I would take the class, and she would stroll my daughter around La Jolla for her lunch break, bring my daughter back. So it was working out. We did it for a few months. And I remember one day I got to class, and they had a pop-up fitness challenge. And it was a 1 mile run, fastest mile in the gym from all the classes that, took the class that day. And something sparked in me. Like, I knew they were going to put the names up on that board, and I had to win. I was about 6 months postpartum at the time, and I ran that mile faster than anyone else at the gym. And I peed my pants because I had no business running that fast, just having a baby. But it sparked my competitive drive. And I was like, I just ran a mile faster than anyone in this gym, and I just had a baby. What else can my body do? So I started weight training. I started working out with girls that ran faster than me, that lift heavier, and I pushed my body. I still wasn't seeing a weight loss. And a trainer at the gym was like, you seem so frustrated. You know, how can I help you? And I'm telling him, like, I work out 7 days a week. I barely eat, and I can't lose any weight. And he's like, yeah, because you're not eating enough. And I'm like, okay. I used to throw up my food. I wouldn't eat carrots. And now you're telling me I need to eat more to lose weight. He's like, yes, it's reverse dieting. Your body and metabolism have shut off. Start eating more. Watch what happens. And at this point, as you know, I've done everything. I have nothing else to lose. Start eating more. In about 2 weeks, I lost 5 pounds. And for me to lose an ounce was mind blowing. I ended up about 20-pound weight loss. And this is the point. I'd already had my son. I was 37. You know, I had 2 kids in the best shape of my life. I was running miles faster than I ran them as a Division I athlete. So I was like, I got to write a book. I have to help the woman that is working out and not seeing results. So I write my plan, and I put out a book in January of 2020. Fabulous timing. Everything was great. And I was doing little like squats and margaritas talks at gyms. I was doing local like lifestyle pieces on TV. And then the world shut down, the pandemic. So at first I was like that super peppy mom that was like, who cares if the gyms are closed? Put your daughter on your back and do some squats and pick up your bottled waters and do lunges. And 2 months into the pandemic, I just broke. And I went on Instagram Live and said, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. The gyms are closed. The playgrounds are closed. The schools are closed. What in the hell am I supposed to do with them? And other moms would come on and be like, scavenger hunt, take them outside, find a pine cone, find a stop sign. And I'd be like, yes, this is good. Next week, pour a cocktail, join me on Instagram Live, because we couldn't have cocktails then. Everything was shut down. So it became something for moms to look forward to, share kind of best practices. And I started asking some other like prominent mom bloggers to go live with me, and they said yes. I asked one of the Real Housewives to go live with me, and she said yes. And my intention was to motivate other moms, and that was it. I would do my show every week. And then unbeknownst to me, after one of my shows, a program director in Washington, D.C. got in touch with me and offered me my own show on Podcast One. And I now host Squats and Margaritas, a wellness show to inspire and empower other moms. I've been able to connect with women that I never would have been able to talk to. Katie Couric, Melissa Joan Hart, Gabby Bernstein. I've interviewed these powerful women and put out a show every week to inspire other moms who maybe aren't feeling fulfilled or not happy in their body. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. And very recently, I took it a step further when a blue butterfly was legit stalking me. Every single day, it would be on my front doorstep, just flapping its wings, the same blue butterfly. And I would put it on Instagram, and I'm like, I don't understand. What do I do with this? Like, God, I see you, but I don't know what to do with it. And one day I was talking with my business coach, and we were talking about a nonprofit. And I said, I've always wanted to help younger girls. Like when I was a teenager, I was anorexic, I was bulimic, I had no self-worth. And I want girls to have a safe place and almost like a mentorship from other women who have been through those things, to be like a community. And she's like, what are you going to call it? And in that moment, I was like, Blue Butterfly Foundation. Like it was so clear. And as of 3 days ago, Blue Butterfly Foundation is now up and running. And we will start next year, like having retreats and being a community to help support young girls. Essentially, I took my pain and made it my purpose. And all that mess that I went through has now become my message.
Wow. Erin, your story is absolutely intriguing. You know, I just love how you have turned your adversity into something positive. Now let's just welcome our next speaker so she can be part of this discussion. Tendai, wonderful to have you with us this morning. How are you?
Hi, Gertrude. Hi, Terry. And hi, Erin. What an amazing story.
Thank you, Tendai. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, ladies. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. So we'll go around the room and give Erin some feedback. Erin, what fascinates me about your story is you managed to take something that was really negative and turn it into a positive.
Thank you.
You know, what you're talking about is an issue that parents are facing with their teenagers right now.
Yes.
The use of social media has affected girls in such a big way because they go onto Instagram, they look at people's pictures who look perfect, and they don't realize that those perfect pictures have been photoshopped. It's not the real people. So if you were to go back to younger you, Erin, that young woman who was struggling with her self-worth and her body image, and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, what would you say to that young girl? Just in case there's somebody listening into this interview right now who's going through a similar struggle.
I just feel like first it's not, this isn't it. Like what you're feeling right now is just a season in your life. And it may seem, and it did seem for me, just you didn't even want to live like every day. Depression is real. And you see all the things around you, like you just said, that aren't even real, that you were trying to, you know, measure up to and compare yourself to. And Gertrude, I've shared the story with you. I watched a woman, a bone thin model on a airplane, photoshopping a picture and taking a little bit off her arm and a little bit off her leg and post it to Instagram. And all I could think about was me at that time, or like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old girl thinking, if I just try a little bit harder, if I starve myself a little bit more, I can get to this. And it's not real. And the other side of that is that model didn't even feel confident enough posting a picture of her own body. She thought she had to make herself smaller. You have to, your worth is not your size or a number on a scale, which for me, like every day during that time in my life, I would weigh myself every day. And depending on that number, it was like I had a good day or a bad day. If I had gained, that was it. Like that set the tone for the day. If I had lost, like there was no bringing me down. That's what mattered. And it's just, I think now there's such a body positivity moment like happening. Like I think of like Lizzo and like people embracing their bodies. And it's hopefully like trending away from what it used to be, but setting up like my nonprofit now and thinking and seeing the keywords that girls that age are Googling, like it is my mission for girls to know that this is not your life. This is a season, and what is to come is going to be so much easier for you to see. It's just hard for you now at this point of your life to see past it. And there is so much more on the other side. Like, I mean, I was throwing up my food and putting my boyfriend's name to make sure he wasn't cheating on me every day. And now I'm like hosting a wellness show. Like you can change your life at any point. And if you're feeling stuck or like it's over, this is it. This is just a season. And there is so much more that you're going to miss out on if you don't, you know, stick it out or find a safe community, hopefully like one that I can provide where, you know, you're not the only girl feeling like this.
That is fantastic. Ms. Terry, what's your feedback for Erin?
Well, my feedback is I like to eat. I love to eat.
Me too.
And I blame my mother for that because we had to eat everything. We didn't get a chance to decide, no, you're not eating that. I'm going to have another sandwich, but no. And I blame her for that. But my weight has gone up and down, up and down. When I'm more active, I'm fine. But then you get complacent and you meet the man of your dreams. And he used to always tease me when he met me. I was a size 8. Okay. But he used to always tease me about sending me back home to my mother if I gain any weight. And so, but that never happened because we've been married 36 years now.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
And during the pandemic, I did lose about 50 pounds.
Whoa.
I've been back and forth with Weight Watchers. But at this point, it's for the health of it, because at 73, I don't have too many more years to keep bouncing back and forth. So,
First of all, I
yeah.
thought you were maybe 50. You're
No.
70. You look absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
goodness.
so now it's for the health of it.
Mhm.
And this past weekend, I did a little golfing thing. So, you know, sometimes you come off the rails a little bit. And I did. I owed it to myself. And so now I reward myself with food. And then I go back to my eating habits, because I learned at an early age, it took you a while to realize that you can't starve yourself and lose weight.
No, but
There
women don't
is-
know that, Terry. Like, people, weren't you taught calories in versus calories out? That it was just like an equation. You barely eat, you exercise more, and you'll be skinny. But it doesn't work. You turn your metabolism completely off because your body thinks you're starving.
Exactly. And I think the education of this, educating girls, is the best way, because, you know, we found out the hard way. You know, we just thought it would work. Exercise because I like to eat. So let's just get the calories off because I'm going to consume what I want to consume. So education, you're on point with your foundation of trying to teach the younger girls, because the younger they are now, and I watch them and I'm like, oh, you guys, you're going to pay for that. You need to lose weight. You got to lose weight.
I have a daughter. I have a daughter, and it's just like my mission. Like, I don't want her to deal with what I dealt with. And I didn't even have social media, Terry. Like, we had like the magazines at the grocery store. So for me to struggle, and I didn't do that.
I would pick up every magazine at the grocery store and say, oh, this is a new diet. Oh, let me figure this out. You know?
Yes. And Terry, diets work, but they're not sustainable. And so at some point, when you stop eating like that, the weight comes back on. And you made me think of one other thing when you're talking about, like, rewarding yourself. Nothing should ever be off limits, because when it is, that is all you want. It is so enticing and up on the pedestal that, like, I can't have cake, I can't have wine, and it's all you want. And then when you have a glass, it's, I blew it, might as well drink the whole bottle and start over. But if it's part of your lifestyle and it's something that you have every day, it's neutral. It's not enticing. Like, I have wine every day. It's not, I never need to overdrink. Or if I have a cookie, I don't say, oh my gosh, I blew it, I got to eat all the cookies and I'll start over tomorrow. It's a balanced lifestyle. Have a cookie, move on. Nothing is off limits, and just be mindful. Like, if you're hungry, eat. If you're satisfied, stop eating. Sounds very simple. Took me 20 years to figure it out.
Yeah. It takes a while for it to sink in. And I've got a friend now who joined Weight Watchers. She's preparing for her daughter's wedding. And I'm like, you don't need to make that the focal point. You need to work on your health. The reasons why you need to lose weight is not just because of a wedding.
Because then it'll just go back after the wedding. It has to be a lifestyle.
I've been there, done that. So
you're right. Yes.
Thank you.
My gosh. Tendai, what feedback do you have for Erin?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Erin, because there are so many young people who do not know that we are far more than our body and our shape.
Thank you.
And as mothers and as women, I think we have done a disservice of cutting out what our grandmothers used to do, sit in circles and speak to the next generation. So I'm excited with the foundation you've started.
Thank you.
That not only will you light a path for the young people, but even for some older women who are still struggling.
Yes, thank you.
To know how to bring their children from that dark place into the light and the brilliance of who they are. Because while our shapes and our sizes are different, we are unique, and that uniqueness needs to be celebrated. And I think the narrative of beauty should now come from women and not from men.
Yes.
Because the magazines we are buying, the stories we are buying are stories from a man's perspective. So Erin, I am excited for what you're doing. And I'm just just coming to that place of you telling your true story and your true struggle is one thing that I think our generation of women have not been able to say, that, I struggled with this without shame, without guilt, without condemnation. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Great. Great.
It's absolutely wonderful, Erin. So my last question for you is this. If time was an illusion, your past, your present exist in the same timeline, and I can teleport you to the 100-year-old you,
Oh my gosh.
and you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, based on how you're eating and how you're living, you'll probably live to 120.
Whoa.
But if you have a conversation with this wise woman who has led you to that point, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
Like, it's just that I'm proud of her. Like, I was so skeptical of spirit, and I don't want to say, grew up in the Catholic Church and I was religious, and like spirituality, sometimes I would be like, oh, I don't know. When you open your eyes and you pay attention and just kind of trust that what is for you will find you. Like, I'm glad that I finally just looked around. Like, that butterfly could have been there for 2 other years and I didn't even notice, but I started paying attention. And it's like my life's purpose found me. And all I can hope is to leave a legacy. I'm so glad you said that, Tendai, about it, like paying forward. My hope for Blue Butterfly is that the women that come and mentor, they give the message to the younger girls, and then those younger girls can come back and be Blue Butterflies for the next generation, so that every younger girl has that woman to be like, it's fine, I've been through it, this too shall pass. And I just hope that that is my legacy that I leave, like that my daughter doesn't struggle like I did, and that there is a safe community that I didn't have. And a woman is not going to lose 20 years of her life trying to reach a physical ideal and meet this standard that isn't even real, and can know as a teenager her worth and realize and know that she's not alone. Like, I was the only person when I wrote my book that said when I said I was bulimic, I didn't know anyone that was bulimic. Like, I thought I was the only one, and nobody was sharing it. So it's like, for girls to not feel alone, to feel seen and understood by women that have been through the things. If that's what my 100-year-old self leaves behind, I'll tell her that I'm proud of her.
I love that. I love asking that question, because a lot of women don't realize that we are born with all of the answers to all of our problems. The wisdom that has come through you now has always been there. You just didn't realize it until this point.
Yeah.
So imagine if we just knew that we have the answers, we have the solutions, they're inside us. And we trust those little promptings, whatever it is that made you see that blue butterfly every morning, those are the promptings, the signs.
Yeah.
But sometimes we sleepwalk through life, we don't even see it coming.
Exactly. I wasn't paying attention. And then it's like, when you do pay attention, it's like mind blowing how much you're just like, oh my gosh, like you wake up from a dream or something. It's like, it's right there. You just have to pay attention.
Yeah. And I do believe that things happen for a reason and in due time.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And had I not gone through all of the things, like there was a reason for all of it, to find my life's purpose and, to empower other women, and then to ultimately empower the next generation. I wouldn't have been drawn to do this if I didn't have that struggle. So anyone that's struggling now, this is just your setup for what you're going to do.
Yeah. Right.
And it's amazing, because since I met Erin, I've started taking some of her principles on board. I'm 55. Women over the age of 50 struggle with weight loss. When you're going through menopause, your metabolism changes completely. I used to be one of those people who could eat anything and I could just walk it off. A couple of days of walking, it's gone. Now I can't get rid of it. And so I'm learning to release. I was doing intermittent fasting before I met you, Erin. I think I mentioned this to you. And so I wouldn't eat for, 8 hours? And then during the day I'm eating.
I can't do it.
And it's just insane. And nothing shifted, nothing changed. And then I started listening to your podcast. I read your book. I've lost about 2 kilos, which is almost 5 pounds since we met. Yeah.
Good.
And then
Gertrude, that's so great.
I've started the weight training. I went and had lunch with a friend yesterday, and he looked at me and he said to me, "What have you been doing? You look so different." I'm like, "I'm eating more." He's like, "What do you mean?"
Exactly.
Eating more.
Women are not taught more, or say it more often. You don't even have to eat a ton, but as long as food is coming in, your body will burn. And when you stop eating, your body's like, "Oh, we got to hold on."
When am I going to get fat again? Yeah.
It's like a light bulb. Eat more. It's called reverse dieting. And I'm telling you, it's not what women are taught. Maybe I'll do a TED talk about it one day.
Yeah. And then the other half of that is making sure that you rest, that you sleep well. That's important.
That's all hormones, stress hormone, cortisol. If you're tired or stressed out, like I was looking at menus and making sure I wouldn't take a day off 7 days a week. And living like that makes your body hold on to fat. Relax, listen to your hunger cues. Like Gertrude said, put weight, a muscle on your body, and just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're satisfied. It's a simple process. It's just kind of rewiring your brain for what we've been taught our whole lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Tendai, any parting thoughts for Erin before we move on to you as our next speaker?
I guess I just want to say thank you, really, because it's something very dear to my heart, raising two African young, gorgeous girls in a nation where we are such a minority in Australia. I've had to nail it into their ears that look at your mama's hips, be moving, be eating, be healthy.
Yes.
You're not going to be that small girl. So, Erin, let your light shine the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe we can get them in Blue Butterfly. Follow me. We'll get your girls. We have a place for them.
All right.
I'll connect the two of you.
Thank
you. Erin, you're welcome to stay with us and listen to Tendai's presentation. If you need to go, you need to go. I know you've got your little ones at home.
I want Tendai, please. I want to connect with you. They are back. I can't believe you don't hear them. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. A 4 and a 6-year-old, and they are just off camera.
All right. Well, you go and be mom. And wonderful to have you on our platform and have you as part of our tribe. I love your energy, Erin. You are infectious.
Thank you so much for having me. Nice to meet you, ladies.
Nice meeting you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so Terry, I'm going to read the next bio.
Okay.
One, because I am so inspired to introduce my newfound sister. So Terry, if you didn't know, Tendai is from Zimbabwe.
I kind of guessed that.
And she is a wife and a mother at heart. She's the well-known voice of transformation. She's a public speaker who addresses critical issues affecting individual social and relationship development. Like me, we have some music coming through. Is that on my side?
It's Tendai.
It's me, sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll do that again. All right, so Tendai is a wife and a mother at heart. She's a well-known as a voice of transformation. She's a public speaker who addresses critical issues affecting individuals' social and relational development. The central theme of her message is the transformation of the ordinary individuals into self-leaders who, by equipping them, maximize their potential and live a life of purpose. Tendai is a certified NLP practitioner and business consultant. She's the founder and president of Found by Grace Ministry, a not-for-profit organization. Tendai has served as a pastoral care team for over 10 years. Hence, she has a passion to see families thrive, regardless of the challenges that they face in life. She mentors women who aspire to lead as she's been part of the Australia African Leadership Program and is now joined the John Maxwell team. Tendai, it gives me great pleasure to have you on our stage today. The stage is yours for the next 15 minutes, and then we are going to come and have our Q&A session once you're done. Welcome to the tribe.
Thank you, Gertrude. I feel so honored to be in this space. My story really is the story of leading through crisis. My husband and I are adventurous. We married very young. Nobody believed that these two young people would make it. But we had a vision for our marriage. We both had come from broken homes. And when we met, we decided that we would be a couple who would draw a line and make our future different from our childhood. My husband one day said, honey, let's go to Australia. And I said, oh, what's in Australia? And he says, Australia is looking for people who can help them. They have a shortage of engineers. And as you know, Zimbabwe is changing. Let's take a leap of faith and take the journey. I said, definitely, let's do that. So we started doing the process and we made a decision to not tell anyone about our decision to leave our country. We did it secretively. And when the paperwork came through, it took 18 months for the whole process. We found ourselves in Perth. We packed our bags, said goodbyes to our family in 2002, Christmas Day. We flew on an adventure that changed our lives. With two little children, came to Australia. As soon as we landed in Australia, in Perth, we did not know anyone. We just had permanent residence into Australia. And just before we actually left Zimbabwe, my sister, my older sister, who I come after, said, who do you know who's going to receive you at the airport? I said, I don't know anyone. We're going to stay in a hotel and find jobs from then. My sister said, you clearly haven't thought through this. Let me speak to a friend of mine. She will receive you when you arrive in Perth. So her friend received us and helped us to settle in and introduced us to a lady who I feel like divine connection was there, who adopted us immediately as part of the family and showed us our way into Australia and talked to the company she was working with to say, look, I've got a brother and sister who have come. Have you got a place for them to work? And indeed, we found ourselves working as cleaners with my husband while we were waiting for him to secure a job as an engineer. That was a challenge for me. I hadn't cleaned my house since I got married. I had had someone to help me, but that was also a beautiful experience for my life. 9 months down the line, my husband gets a job in the outback of Australia called Roxby Downs. It is when I arrived to Roxby Downs that my story and my life really changed, because while I was in Roxby Downs, reality really struck. I was trying to find a community that would acknowledge my femininity, acknowledge my children, and raise my children in an environment where there is respect, where there is honor, where there is hope for the future. But all of a sudden, I realized that the environment was not what I expected it to be. When I gathered with women, mind you, this is a small town where I was the only African woman. And so I stood out. So anytime we went anyway, we really stood out. And some people had never encountered a Black person. So really, we were like a museum to the society. But the thing that struck me most was the negativity and the animosity of not even towards me, but mothers speaking about their children, mothers, wives speaking about their husbands. So for instance, I would go for the mothers group because then as soon as I got into Australia, I fell pregnant, which is another story, found myself with a gorgeous little girl who is such a blessing. She's now 19. And there I was with 3 children in the outback, in the heat, in the wilderness of Australia, confronted with this situation of women who speak very badly about their husbands. Things like, oh, my husband is useless. My husband amounts to nothing. Oh, my kids, they are rascals. And I'm thinking, why then are these women with these useless, hopeless men? You know how when you sit in an environment, you become part of that environment? I could not fit in. And I started crying, what have I done? Why did I leave home? Why do these women speak so ill about their children, about their husbands, about themselves? It wasn't even about what they said. You know, they said horrible things about themselves. And I used to wonder, why is it like this? Why are these people like this? If anyone did something beautiful, the negativity, oh, he's too big, he's got a big head, let's see how far. And I said, nobody says anything positive. Lord, why did you bring me to Australia? So it became something that I was now avoiding socializing. I was avoiding to be in groups, and that's not my nature. I come from Zimbabwe, where we talk to everyone, we acknowledge people, we have heartfelt conversations. So I went into this place where I started really crying. And my grandmother and my mother, I thank God for them, had always told me, do not entertain unclean spirits with your mouth. Whatever you say with your mouth attracts a clean spirit or an unclean spirit. And I never used to understand that until that moment when I was in Roxby Downs, surrounded by women, surrounded by mothers, husbands, mocking, laughing, and making fun of each other, and then saying, my children are this. And then I thought, this is what my grandmother and my mother used to say, we need to guard our tongue, because the words we speak build and create the life that we want. That the words we speak are spirit. The words we speak create or build. So I began to pray. And I said, Lord, why am I here in Australia? Why am I surrounded by this? Why are these people like this? And it was a tough situation because here I was different already. And now I felt I needed to change the way people spoke, the way people treated each other, the way mothers, husbands, and wives spoke, the humor, the putting down of self. So as I began to pray, I was afraid, how am I going to do this? Where am I going to start? But as I was praying one afternoon, because I had been out and this woman was at a mother's group, and this woman was talking about how horrible her husband was and how he had made a decision that would impact their lives without consulting. And the whole mother's group became a very toxic environment of each woman talking ill of her husbands. And there I came home with a saddened heart, had no one to talk to but God at that moment. I told my 3 little children that don't look for mom. Mom is going to be in her room, and don't look for me until I come out of that room. And I had tears crying, and I said, God, how are we going to raise our children? How am I going to have friends? How am I going to be part of this community that says nothing good about their own families? As I was crying and praying at that time, that sister of mine who had adopted me when I arrived in Australia called, and the kids picked up the phone and they said, Mom, sorry to disturb you. Auntie is on the phone. She said, it's urgent, get on the phone. When I got on the phone, she said, the Lord spoke to me, and I want you to listen to me very carefully. Your mom is not here. Your dad is not here. Your culture is not going to be here. God has brought you here to be a light and to change the dry places and cause them to be wet and to grow something fresh. I was taken aback and I said, stop crying, she said. And then she prayed with me and she says, you are the one, you are the voice that needs to bring the change. By the time she finished praying, I was a mess, I was crying. And soon after that, I gathered myself, took some time to think, and made the decision to gather women, bring them together and begin to teach them. I went to speak to my local church pastor and I said, I would like to start a mother's group, a group that will not be for the church, but I'll be using biblical references. I'll be using the Bible to teach because that's the book I knew best of. That's the book that my mother taught me from. And I said, it's not going to be for the women in my church, but for the women of Roxby Downs. And I sent out invitations and I started calling women for a morning tea to bring their children. And we begin to talk about issues that impact us. And as I began that journey, I saw transformation. There's one lady who came. She was born in Australia, raised in Australia. And she said, Tendai, I've never had a sister, but you have become my sister. I've never had a mom, and you have become my mom. My mother used to send me to church to get rid of me. So I did not have anything to do with church. And my mother took my husband, my first husband. I went to work and I came back and I found my mother in bed with my husband at the age of 21. But through your teaching and through the journey we've done together, I found it in my heart to forgive my mother. I found it in my heart to change my life, to get a job, to work and support my husband. And from there, fast forward, found myself in Melbourne, changed a location, and I thought, okay, maybe that phase is over. But again, I found that the women here still had the same issue. And I began again in my house to gather women, started with 3 women, and we grew to 30 women. My house could no longer accommodate those women. We ended up now becoming an official ministry where today we run monthly meetings, a retreat, and an annual conference. Why? My story now is to be the light in Australia, to bring restoration to families and to raise women into leadership. Why women? Because women are birthers. Women are restorers. And the story and the history of Australia really has never celebrated women. I was shocked when I came here to realize that when women had babies, they didn't have maternal leave. They had to leave their jobs completely, and it has changed over the years. So my hope is that in Australia, we would lead a generation that would know who they are, a generation that walks in faith and in love, and a generation that seeks light and not darkness. How do I intend to do that? By teaching people how to speak and to discover the power that lies in them. The women, I have journeyed with them. I've journeyed with so many women. We now also have women who have joined us through the Found by Grace ministry. We call our women's session Gracious Women. We also have a couple session because we thought we need our husbands to be empowered as well. We also run a community event called Beyond Beauty, where we talk to young women about their worth and their importance to society. So my story really is leading through crisis. And I have found through my story and through journeying with women that most women discover their leadership and their purpose through the crisis that they go through. And through my experience and through the journey I have taken, my hope is that I would empower community leaders to raise leaders, because we are all born to lead. We all have a sphere of influence that we can influence, that we are created to influence. So my passion and my goal is to raise leaders that lead with the desire to transform and to make the world a better place, and to let each one of us shine our light and disperse the darkness. Thank you. That's my story.
Wow. Wow, Tendai, that is just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible story. I know exactly what you are talking about, having lived in New Zealand and now here in Australia. It's an interesting place to be. So, if we could go back to when you were starting your organization, let's say there's a woman who is in some other part of the world, is seeing something she's uncomfortable with in her environment and wants to do something to change that situation. Based on what life has taught you, if you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of advice on how you got started, what would that advice be?
Number one, I think be true to yourself. Trust yourself that you've got what it takes to bring the change. Number two, do it from a place of love and service. Don't make it about you. Make it about the situation, and to see the results. Believe that you've got what it takes to bring that change. The third one, I would say, trust the process, because there is a process. You will make mistakes. You will miss some things. Trust the process as well, because as you make the transformation, you are changing as well.
Amazing. Terry, any feedback?
Yes. I really enjoyed that, Tendaya. What do you do when you're rejected, when you're trying to assist other people to find their purpose and to think about, like you said, trust the process? We all get in a hurry and ready for it to happen.
Yeah.
And you come forth and you say, I think your purpose might be so and so. You need to pray about that, because what you're doing is not quite right. Is there a better way to say that and do that?
That's such a good question, Terry. And I have been rejected so many times because, in fact, I'll share this story. There's one woman who actually said, Tendai, when I first saw you, because she saw me speaking at an event, and she said, I was like, she's full of herself. She speaks and she's too proud. And she said, but after you left, there were things you had said in your speech that made me realize that there was nothing wrong with you. It was my own inferiority. It was and I thought, this is the woman I want. This is the woman I want, who is courageous, who is strong. Rejection will come. And rejection prunes us because it tests us, whether we're doing it for self or for others. The rejection builds us, because if you can see that somebody is living less and worthy of themselves, and you believe in them long enough, and you continue to minister to them, to share to them from a place of love, from a place of enlightenment, rather than condemnation, rather than pulling them down, eventually, you see, you can't put light, because at the end of the day, it's like if you put on light when somebody has been in the darkness for too long, it's not nice. They want to cover. So that's what causes people to reject, when you start calling them onto that path of discovering and walking in authenticity, in light. I hope that answers your question.
It did. And a lot of times I just back away and I come to them differently. You know, I have a tendency to believe in tough love, and I say things, and sometimes people look at me like, no, you didn't just say that. Well, you know how I am. Okay. So you have to accept me for, for who I am. I'm accepting you. Okay. And eventually they do. But I discovered my purpose. It's not always about the money. Yeah, I've retired 3 times. Okay. So so it's like, Terry, you need to stop. And so I did get on my knees and I said, okay, now I've got all these skills, all this talent. What am I supposed to be doing? Okay. And I know it's inside of me what I'm supposed to be doing. So I went to prayer, and it was, my purpose is to help anybody, everybody, whoever needs it. If I need to help you get through a crisis, if I need to teach you something that I know, it's like, just do it. Just do it. And one of my favorite sayings is that we receive our blessings when we bless others. And so that has happened to me. And I know that is the way that I'm directed, is as long as I'm helping somebody else, all of a sudden everything starts coming at me. It's like, I mean, just falling into place. And it's like, I didn't think about that. Should I be doing that? Should I be, And so I've just been really happy in the last couple years, because things have just fallen into place. And I truly believe that in my spirit, that when I say something to somebody, it's not me talking. I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to say that. No, don't do that, And then the longer I sit there, it's like, it's coming out. I gotta say what's been hit with me in my spirit. So I really appreciate what you said, everything, especially your 3 pointers: trust and serve, and also trusting the process. We've got to get through the process, and everything is a process. It is a process. You have to recognize that it is, and you've got to go through it.
Yeah.
Something else that I loved about what you said, Tendai, is being prepared for the haters. When I coach my clients, I always tell people that there's a 33% rule to anything you will sell, promote, put out there. 33% of people will love you. They will hear the message, they will get it, they'll come on board. 33% of people hate you. You'll get the trolls who will find you through social media. They'll put horrible messages on your posts. And then there's 33% of people who are just indifferent. They just don't give a damn. They're not affected at all. So when you know who your 33% are, you know you'll get through to the people who need to hear your message. And I think that's a really big take home from what you've shared today. So just like I asked Aaron earlier, if time was an illusion and I could transport you into the future, you're now 100, you're surrounded by your children, your great-grandchildren, and you could have a conversation with this wise woman who's led you to that point. What would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
I'll probably say, well done, good and faithful servant. You have fought the good fight of faith. You have endured the test of time, but you have left a generation that knows who they are.
Wow, that is profound.
Wow.
The reason why I like to ask this question, Tendai, is a lot of women don't realize that they have the wisdom inside them already. That seed that's inside you, that's driving you to do what you do every day. There's no two people like you. You were born with the knowing. You were born with how you're going to do this. And it's those women who trust that feeling, who say, I'm feeling something. I feel like I need to make a difference. And they just take a step and a step and a step. And then the road unfolds when you start taking one step at a time. But a lot of times women want to think about, I don't have the skills, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have. And we kill our own dreams before we even start.
Yeah.
So what you have created is a legacy. The fruit of your work, you might not even live long enough to see it, but you've sown a seed that is generational, and that's what's really exciting. And I know with the work that Terry and I are doing with the HerStory movement, it's the same thing. It's like planting the seed of an oak tree and never sitting under the shade of that tree. But you know that tree is going to grow and the next generation are going to benefit from it. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, with your knowledge, with your inspiration this morning. I can't wait to finally meet you in person as well. So you and I need to schedule and catch up and have a coffee.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last party message is this. Is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't? What is your parting thought?
I think that the number one question that I think you could have asked me is there any time you thought of giving up?
Yeah.
And the answer is?
And my answer is yes.
Several times, yes.
Yes, there is a time I could not see the path clearly. And that was the most incredible time of learning something, because I learned, as you said earlier, that there is a 33 who want, and I think there is also a percentage of people who come, like when you said you sow a seed. When you sow a seed, there's also weeds that grow around that seed.
Yeah.
So after years of, because in Melbourne, when I started in 2009. And then by 2016, we had grown. We were now running from outside of my home. And I was getting more speaking engagements where women would they say, I want to connect with you. I want to work with you. Then I'll say, come be part of Gracious Women or part of my coaching practice. And because we were growing, I was now building a team so that I was raising leaders within those ladies who came. And because the women I was drawing were women who were broken.
Mm.
When people are broken, you journey with them tenderly. And sometimes you have to be like Terry and have that tough love, because otherwise they stay in the cycle. You have to cut some things and go through them. Amongst my leadership grew a familiarity.
Mm.
Unbeknown to me, because for me, my heart was to serve and to trust and to believe, which what my name means, believe that all the people that have surrounded me are for the vision and for the purpose of what we wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow a weed of self-raised, self-ambition, and forgetting our vision, that this is not about Tendai. This is about Tendai sowing seeds for the next generation, that when I am gone, yes, they will remember, but they will walk a life worth living. So within my leadership, there was that animosity against the vision, and I could feel it. I could not tell where it was coming from. I was struggling within myself, that there's something holding us from going to the next level, and I could not pick what it is. So I gathered all the gracious women and I said, I am the visionary. I am the one running, seeing the vision, but for some reason it seems like there is something that is blocking my vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to withdraw. And in my withdrawal from this, there are two things that's going to happen. I'm either going to coming back and say we are going to the next level, or I'm coming back and saying we are finished. This is it. We ain't going anywhere, and there's another path for me. And I want you to prepare your hearts to know that I love you. I've not led you astray. I'm leading you to a path of discovering who you are and raising a generation that knows who they are, a generation that is full of light and not darkness. So when I come back, there are two things. We are either going higher or we are finishing.
Mm-hmm.
And I went away. I left my husband. I left my kids. I said, don't look for me. Don't find me. I'm going away to find my path, because this thing that is burning in me is not going to the next level. There's something blocking it. And when I came back, I was clear we're going to the next level. But
Okay.
I got clear instructions. Ask everyone who is going to climb the mountain with me, because I don't believe in climbing mountains alone. I believe in climbing with someone, because if I fall, someone will catch me. If I get cold, someone will keep me warm. So I asked who is still 3 times. I asked who is still, because I asked the first time and I had again in my spirit, asked the second time, asked the third time. And then after the third time, I had 2 of my leaders say, sorry, we can't be part of this. We are leaving. And I said, thank you, honored them and sent them off. And we went on, and we are still going on. And 9 months after they had left, I had some of the women who had just joined the ministry, who were still younger in their faith and their self-development, who came to me and said, those particular leaders had gone to them to say, you don't need that, stop it, don't go there.
Oh, wow.
And I apologized to them and I said, I'm sorry that you have had to go through that. You trusted them because of me. It was my era of judgment and my misunderstanding to entrust them to this vision. Forgive them and let's release them from our lives and hope that they too will find their direction and light up. So the journey as a leader is that you will make mistakes and it can be quite costly, but giving up is not an option. You stop, you heal, and you rise up again.
Wonderful way to end our presentation with you, Tendai. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.
Absolutely
so much,
inspirational. Have a fantastic day, Tendai. You're welcome to stay with us if you like. If you have to go, we understand you have to go, but wonderful to have you as part of this tribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. It's
Thank
been an
you.
honor to be here.
Take care, and we will do coffee next
Yes,
week.
definitely.
Take care,
Okay,
Tendai.
great.
Bye.
Oh, wow. What an inspiring morning, Terry. Absolutely
Yes.
inspiring morning we've
Yes.
had.
Very, very inspiring.
Ooh. All
Yeah.
right. So our next presenter is coming to us via video. You have her bio?
Okay. And that would be Laura.
Correct.
Laura Kylie or Kelly. I think it's Kylie.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. While you're getting the video there.
Lined it up. Yeah, it's ready.
She is the founder and CEO of Mediation. Laura is a barista, trial lawyer, and entrepreneur with a blue chip legal and business background as a top tier corporate lawyer, company director, business advisor, and in-house counsel for listed corporates. A qualified arbitrator and specialist in corporate law and complex commercial litigation. Laura was awarded Innovator of the Year by the Women's Baristas Associations, I think it's Barristers Association in 2020 for her work in pioneering online meditation. Laura was also awarded a Most Influential Lawyer Changemaker in 2021 for her work in pioneering online dispute resolution. I present to you Laura Kelly.
Mediation.
Okay, it looks like our video has frozen. So I might have to load it again. Technology is great, Terry, when it works.
Yes, of course, when it works. But
works.
it's okay. We'd like for everyone that's listening to be reminded that I am in Indiana and Gertrude is in Melbourne, Australia. So there's many, many miles between us, and the airwaves are being interfered with.
Okay, let me try that again.
Okay.
Sometimes when I load the videos too early, they sit there and then they expire, I think. So let's give it another try. It's going to take a while to come through. Okay, so while her video is loading, let's go on to the next one, Terry. You have the bio. And
it's in the chat. Is that the one I'm looking at?
Yes, Karen.
Okay, let me get it
loaded. If I can load Karen's instead.
All righty. And I will read the bio.
Yeah.
Karen Gross is an educator and author, writing books for both children, early childhood through grade 6, and adults. Her Lady Lucy series is well known and has been read to over 3,000 children across the globe. Her newest adult book, released in June 2020 from Columbia Teachers College Press, is titled Trauma Doesn't Stop at the School Door: Strategies and Solutions for Educators Pre-K through College. This book is a sequel to her earlier book, Breakaway Learners, also with Teacher College Press in 2017. She also speaks, advises, and consults nationally and internationally on trauma, student success, improving educational leadership, and handling educational crises. To that end, she serves as senior counsel to Finn Partners. She is also an author in residence at Molly Stark Elementary School in Vermont. In 2018, she was a visiting scholar at the University of British Columbia in Canada. She's an affiliate of the Rutgers Center for MSIs and is continuing education instructor in the Trauma Certification Program at the Rutgers University Graduate School of Social Work. She will be visiting faculty at College Unbound in 2021. Many auxiliary teaching tools based on her school resources, books, and courses are available on this site. She has many, many accolades as an educator and as a trainer. I introduce to you, excuse me, Karen Gross.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory podcast and the HerStory TV. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia today. And I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating lady. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here. My name is Karen Gross, and I'm an author and educator, a former college president, and the former senior policy advisor to the U.S. Department of Education during the Obama administration. I'm in my late 60s, and I'm speaking to you from the waterfront in Gloucester, Massachusetts, in the United States.
Wonderful. Karen, you are an educator. You work with people on so many levels. I had a fascinating conversation with you the other day. Tell us, where does your story begin? How did you get into this work?
Well, first of all, you can actually hear my basset hound who will be part of this story. So I'm hoping he'll be quiet enough to let us go. Otherwise, I'll have to pause and give him some cheese or something to keep him quiet. I think maybe the best way to share this story, my story, is to share an incident that happened recently that I just posted a piece about. So I was at a beach here, sitting on the rocks with a father and his son, and the three of us were enjoying watching the water and the boats. And a small boy came up and saw the dog Wrinkles, which is a basset hound, and asked very politely, "Can I pet the dog?" To which I said, "Absolutely." And he started petting the dog, and then he reached out his little hand and held my hand. So we had a triangle. On one side, he was holding the ear of the dog, and on the other, he was holding my hand. Now, I'll just pause here to say that, long story short, he, after a while, left and went off with his family. And I asked the father and son who were there with me, "What did you think of that incident?" And they both remarked, "My, how trusting was the boy? How trusting were the parents?" And I said, I have a very different take on this story. I think the boy was lacking affection and connection. And I think he felt disconnected and needed to find a way to connect even with a stranger. And one of the trauma symptomologies often evidenced in children is something called fawning, Fawning. Now, I've had children fawn in many situations. So I've gone to schools to read my books, and children cling to my arms and my legs, children who've never met me before. And I know now that that's a trauma response. That's a way that children who aren't getting enough nurturing at home connect. And it's a symptom, really, of the fact that while our brains are wired for connectivity, lots of children don't have the kind of connectivity, attention, emotional attachment that they need in order to thrive.
Right.
But never in all my years of doing this work, which is informed by scholarship, informed by in the trenches experiences, informed by my own childhood and adult trauma experiences, never have I had a child actually hold my hand for a lengthy period, having never seen me before. And what that story tells you is both about the work that I do, but also about the state of our world, in which many of us right now have something invisible but powerful, namely the symptoms of trauma from the pandemic and racial tensions and ethnic discrimination and divisiveness of our world. And we're carrying it around in invisible backpacks. And most of us as adults and even don't reach out and touch the hands of strangers, and don't reach out and touch strange dogs. But there is a lesson there. This little boy, whose name is Henry, Super Henry, he calls himself, knew what he needed and found it. And we would all be wise to take it as a recognition that we need connectivity, that we have been impacted by the pandemic. And we should recognize that while we're not going to go around holding strangers' hands, we do need to find ways to restore the connectivity that the pandemic, social distancing, masks, discrimination, vituperative dialogue has done in terms of how we feel and how disconnected we are and how we need to restore that. So that's my story.
Wow. What an interesting story, because on the face of it, the initial reaction would be that this child is very, very trusting. For somebody who doesn't work with children, who doesn't understand the behavior of children, you could read it completely differently.
Yes.
And what's
And
interesting—
we often do, by the way.
I would never have seen that. And what's interesting is that it's not just children right now. It's adults as well. We are so disconnected right now with family, with friends, with just people in our community. Everybody's needing to find a way to find that hand to hold, so to speak.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really, so I wear a permanent trauma lens. Think of it like a set of eyeglasses that I have that others don't have, right? So what I see when we experience similar things is something quite different, right? Because I have a perspective that has been informed through years and years of experience and instinct and knowledge that informs how I interpret what happens. But one of the real tragedies of what has happened over the last 18 months across the globe is that many of our rituals for death, memorial services, burials, convenings, conversations, in-person hugs, have been missing. And so our anchors for dealing with grieving have been lost. And so as we now come upon trauma anniversaries of the death of hundreds of thousands of people, that original trauma will get rekindled, re-triggered. And yet our schools, our workplaces, our world isn't trained to be centers for grieving. And so we really need, I think, to be much more aware than we are about the psychological impacts of the pandemic on learning, on engaging, on processing, on death. And we would be wise to prepare way better than we are preparing for how to reopen schools, how to reopen workplaces, how to help those who have been profoundly affected by what has happened over the last 18 months.
It's interesting you should say that. I
So
lost my mother.
Keep talking. I'm going to give keys to the dog as you talk.
Okay. I lost my mother-in-law on the 29th of March last year. And then 3 weeks later, I lost my mother in Zimbabwe. And there are days when I think I'm okay. And I could be in a supermarket and there's a song playing in the background. And that just brings it all back. So you kind of feel like you've processed it. You kind of feel like you're okay, but you're not.
So first of all, I'm sorry for your losses. It's hard. And this is a really hard time for lots and lots of people. And I think the process of grieving, which we normally have, and is a perfectly natural thing to do when there's loss, has been truncated by the pandemic because we haven't been able to grieve in the usual ways. And what we also, I think, don't acknowledge enough is what you're describing, which is it's really easy for trauma to get re-triggered. Whether it's a song or another death or an encounter of some sort, or coming upon a letter or looking at a photograph or meeting up with a friend. All of these things trip it off again. They like hit a tuning fork in our heads and off we go again, even though we think we've dealt with what has happened. And I think one of the sort of critical things for me is to recognize that that's happening. If you recognize it, it's way easier to deal with it. It's when it shocks you, like, oh, goodness, that's happening again.
It's
way harder than if you say, okay, it's highly likely that over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, the events that have occurred will recur in some fashion. So I was at 9/11.
Okay.
I audited a school right there. And I saw one of the Twin Towers fall. I literally saw it fall. And so, when people say to me on the anniversary of 9/11, whether it's the 5th or the 10th or whichever number, they say, are you going to watch the videos? And I say, I don't need to watch a video. I have a permanent video.
Memory of it.
So it's interesting. I was walking about a year after the Twin Towers fell in an area not at ground zero, but in an area close to it that I hadn't been to since then. I was going to teach at another school and give a lecture. And I happened to call the librarian at the school where I worked to confirm a citation.
Right.
And he said to me, "Are you all right? You're hyperventilating." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "No, really, are you all right? I mean, like, you should just stop for a minute." And I stopped and I looked around, and there I was at ground zero, basically. And all the feelings from that day had just come rushing back.
And you weren't
And-
even aware of it.
Correct.
Hmm.
And I think that's what will happen
Hmm.
to many people in many contexts as the trauma anniversaries recur.
So Karen, what 3 nuggets of wisdom advice could you give to people right now to deal with it when it shows up?
Well, that's a hard question, right? Because there's no one answer that works for everyone in every context, in every situation. So maybe the first thing to realize is that we each experience trauma differently. And while there's some shared symptomology, to be sure, you need to contextualize one's own experiences.
Yeah.
I think the second thing we need to do is get over the stigma that we place on trauma and recognize that it's not something we ask for. It's not something we intend. It's not something we do to ourselves. It's something that happens to us.
Yeah.
And in that sense, there's not blame. There should be a recognition that something has happened, and the best way to deal with it is to start by acknowledging it.
Yes.
And the third nugget I would leave you with is, if you can name it, namely trauma, while it will never go away, you can tame it. And then if you tame it, you can frame it, as in put it in a frame to recognize its importance, but also put it in a frame as in a structure so that you can deal with it. So I would tell you that the key feature is to name it, then tame it, and then frame it.
Wow. I don't have the words to thank you for today, especially on a personal level. Yeah, we say that we go through what we go through so we can become teachers. So maybe the experiences you've had personally have got you to this point so you can help other people who are experiencing the same.
Well, I hope I can. And I hope that the work I do and the books and articles that I write and the teaching that I do helps others. And I am very forthright about my own story. The HerStory that you talk about. I've written about my own trauma. I discuss it openly. I even tell teachers that you should have a day with students where students can ask you anything. And as long as it's within the realm of decency, you'll answer. Because I think students need to know, particularly now, that the experience their educators are having and have had is not vastly different from their own.
From their own. It does make their educators real people who have real emotions and feelings and life experiences that are similar.
Yes, and actually there's a rich literature about Katrina, because when Katrina happened, which is the flood that occurred in New Orleans from the hurricane, and many people were injured and lost their homes and died, and that therapists realized that usually the experience of patients is different from the experience of therapists. But in that particular setting, when patients and therapists got together finally, they realized that there wasn't a huge divide between their experiences. They shared a trauma. And the therapist wrote that while the dividing line between patient and therapist matters, and you're not their friend as a therapist, it isn't worth hiding the shared experience. In fact, it can be quite enriching. And so I think for students and employees to realize that educators and employers have experienced much of what they have experienced. And while the pandemic has most assuredly hurt many minority and low-income communities and nations terribly, it has also affected others who have at least personal wealth. And so it's been, in some sense, while disparately impacting some, it's been, in another sense, an equal opportunity trauma affecting many.
Yes. We're having a shared experience.
Yes.
As humanity, we are having a shared experience. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic level is. We are having a shared experience. And I think, yeah, that is the biggest takeaway here. Wow.
So I'm glad we've had an opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much.
I deeply respect the work that you do, and the schools that you create and the students that you educate.
Thank you.
And so I hope some of my work can inform what you do, and that your listeners find value to my story and the stories of the other women whom you are interviewing.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to working with you further, Karen.
I look forward to it
nuggets
as
of
well.
wisdom are just absolutely priceless. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The COVID pandemic is presenting humanity with an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for us to be more empathetic. It's an opportunity for us to reconnect within your family, your community, your workplace, and globally. Right now, I'm connecting with Karen. She's sitting in the United States. I'm here in Melbourne, Australia. The world is flat now, so we do have access to each other. Although it's virtual, it is still access and it is still connection. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another fascinating woman. And Karen, thank you again for today.
Pleasure. Nice to be with
Bye
you.
for now, everybody.
Good
Don't
night.
go, Karen. Wow. Yet another interesting presenter, Terry. We've really had a fantastic lineup of speakers so far. The little story of the child, I'd never heard of that concept of fawning.
And I can relate to that. I can relate to that. Yeah. I volunteer for the Literacy Coalition. And from time to time, we go in and we read to like kindergartners. And so there's this one, I could tell she was a problem child. And so the teacher looked like she was just all flustered by the whole thing. And I said, I got this. And so I said, come here and sit next to me. I couldn't get rid of that kid. She asked me, when was I coming back? Oh. All she wanted was attention. She was doing all that stuff for attention.
Yeah.
That she wasn't getting, and the teacher didn't recognize it, and so I had to explain to her that was all she wanted. She does that. She acts out because she knows you're going to reprimand her. Okay. Yes. So, you've got to change the way you look at her. And so I did go back. I think I went back like in 6 months or so. And she was like, where you been? Where you been? And the teacher says, I took your advice. She's a totally different person now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so beautiful, Terry. That is just so beautiful.
Yeah. And, one time I was teaching Sunday school as well. And, I let the teens talk about whatever they want to talk about besides the Sunday school lesson. How was your week? How was school? And some of the things they talked about that, were bothering them. And I said, you know what? That happened to me. That happened to me. And so I go ahead and I'd share my story. And they said, but you're a success. I said, and you can be too.
Oh.
So, I didn't know what it was called. And I'm not a social worker or, a psychologist in any way. I am an educator. But, we have to look at how people learn, who they're watching,
Yes.
and kind of give them what they need at the appropriate time. Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
That was great.
All right. So we're ready to move on to our next speaker. I'll line up the video while you read the bio.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to crucify her name here. I'm do the best I can. Jewelry designer Vasiliki Kamari co-founded Next Door Goddess on the conviction that there's a radiant goddess in every woman that deserves to come out. I'll call her V. V is a Greek family physician turned Greek immigrant jewelry designer, entrepreneur at the age of 45. Immigration and a question she found in a course fueled this change. If you were to die tomorrow, which is the one dream you will regret not having brought to life? Throughout her medical career, Ms. V has been creating jewelry, what stands today as a company used to be her hobby. Starting out as a self-taught, she honed on her skills as a designer maker through NYIAD and in several other courses she was invested in. For almost 30 years now, her designs are inspired by her homeland, Greece, and the Mediterranean culture and landscape. The colors and amulets, the style and unique spice of women, together with the shapes, forms, textures, and design elements are the main sources of her inspiration. Ms. V, I present to you the jewelry designer.
Thank you, Terry.
Hi, Gertrude. I am so honored to be here. My name is Vasiliki Garmiri, but everybody calls me Vicky from birth, so just call me Vicky. I am logging in from Plano, Texas. That's a little place right outside Dallas. It's a very beautiful place here. But originally, I come from Greece. I immigrated here in 2019. I am going to be 48 years old very soon. And I have a story to share with you that I think is kind of off the beaten track. I like to think of my story as having 3 parts. The first part of my story goes way back in time, almost 30 years ago, when I set myself in a bead store for the very first time. And I think just my feet just led me there because it was a cold evening in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I was waiting for my girlfriends to come pick me up for coffee, and they were kind of late. So I'm just going into that space because it's getting cold and I need some warmth. And I opened that little door. I will never forget it. And I look around and I see the beads, the yarns, the textiles, the colors, the textures. I was mesmerized. I became a bead collector on the spot. I like to think of a collector as someone who is, getting things in their possession that they won't necessarily use in some way. So, I wanted the beads. I needed to have them. So on the spot, I bought beads, I bought yarn, I bought textiles, I bought tools, not really sure what I would be doing with them, but I knew in my heart that I had to do something with them. And that is how my story started. So I asked, there was an old man running that shop, and I kindly asked him, can you please help me, show me a little bit what I'm supposed to be doing with beads and what I should be using with them. And he showed me a couple of things. So I just bought my first tools on the spot. I taught myself how to work with beads in the basement of my parents. And it went on for so many years. It was very interesting for me. It was something that I was always drawn to. I've always been artistic in my life. I have written poetry. I have tried to sketch, but the beads have always been my bigger love. And although later down the line, I did study jewelry design, and also I had the blessing to learn a lot about this craft from very talented mentors in Greece, I will always have those first years in my parents' basement so close to my heart, because that was when my love for the beads and this craft flourished. Now, beads aside, I was a really smart student. At the time in Greece, if you were a smart student, you would either become a lawyer or a doctor. I mean, that was the path. So I never saw this as a way of making money. For me, beading was my art. And I really had this desire in my heart to help people. And since I was such a good student, I started studying to enter med school. And I did. And I became a doctor. Beads were always there by my side. I was doing my beading. I was making my jewelry as a hobby because I was really enjoying it. But in my day life, I was on my path of becoming a doctor and stayed on this path until I became a family physician. And I really, really loved my job. To this day, there are parts of this job that I miss so much because I was always seeking beauty. And in family medicine, I was finding beauty in the human relationship. I really loved my patients. I loved offering to them my best knowledge. And then at night, my beads were waiting for me so that I could create. The second part of my story was when I found the power of your outfit to evoke confidence in you. So it was an afternoon that I got a phone call, and I was invited as a trainee to give a lecture for the first time. And I said, yes. And the moment I said yes was the moment I wanted to take it back. So I visited my uncle, who was the president of the association at the time. And I begged him to spare me of my own decision. Like, I told him, please, Brother, I just cannot do this. I made a mistake. I said, yes, I'm not ready. I just studied out. This is not my time. And he said, shh, girl. I will never forget this scene because I was sitting on his black leather couch. And he was like, girl, I'm going to ask you one thing. Who gave you the right to dim your light? And these words have been engraved in my mind ever since. He said, in the Bible, there's this verse, you will not put the light under the table. And you're just about to do that. That voice inside you that said, yes, I want to give that lecture. It is a voice inside you that is calling you to live a bigger dream, to be someone that is bigger, better than you are right now. And why are you dimming that voice? Why are you going back to playing small? No, I'm not going to let you do that. You said yes, and I believe it was the right decision. So you better start getting ready for that lecture because you're so giving it. And I started preparing. I had a month ahead. I prepared a lot. The more I was preparing, the more comfortable I was getting. So here comes the last day before the presentation, and I'm feeling good. And that morning that I was about to give the presentation, I'm waking up and I only have one thought in my head: what am I gonna wear? Now, for me, this was interesting because normally I would be more anxious about what I would be saying that night, but I had prepared my lecture so well. I was like, okay, now I want to look the part. So I looked into my closet, I find something, I put it on, I feel good. And I felt, something was missing. And I grabbed my favorite necklace and I put it on. And it was such a feeling I had in that moment. I was like, heck yes, I'm going to rock it. It's going to be so good tonight. I'm going to be so good on stage. I'm going to enjoy it. I want it. My uncle was right. I'm going to rock this. I take this outfit out. I go to work because I had to go to work. I come back, I get ready some hours after that, and I am ready. I'm right on stage, and my computer is in front of me. The projector is there, and I try to open up my computer, and I try to open up the projector, and nothing is working. I got so many life lessons about giving a lecture on that moment. Like, have some notes, email your presentation to yourself, have a second iPad or whatever with you. Well, I didn't have any of that. So, it is that split second that you make decisions. So I step ahead and I open my mouth and I'm really ready to say, I guess today we're not having this lecture and we will have to postpone it. That was what was in my head. And then fleetingly, as I was really ready to say that, my hand touched my necklace and somehow I got grounded back to that feeling of, heck yes, I can do this. I can rock this presentation. So to my own surprise, I'm telling everyone, well, I guess it's going to be by heart tonight. And there are many seasoned physicians in the audience. So if you see that I omitted something or said something wrong, please chime in, because it's my first lecture on stage. And I went down and gave my favorite presentation to this day. So in that afternoon, I realized two things. A, that I like so much being on stage. And B, that what you wear, your outfit, can have such an empowering impact on you. I have been raised by a family that has valued a lot what's on the inside. And, my mom, my dad would always be very well presented, but everything that was mostly valued in the family is what's going on the inside. But on that day, I learned that the inside and the outside, they form a unity, and these two come together. So it was really a revelation for me, and all that came from that necklace. And actually what happened right there is called disruption. So I had entered a negative train of thought saying that my technology is not working and I cannot do this because I will have, to give this lecture by heart. And then the fleeting touch of the necklace grounded me back to another feeling. And that was disruption. So I kept on that revelation and I kept on that technique because I use that technique to this day. When I come in the face of fear, I use disruption in my negative, train of thought. And then the third act, but that revelation was personal. It was with me. I still was a doctor. I was flourishing in my medical career. And the third act of my story, when all this that today is Next Goddess started happening, was when we started discussing immigration with my husband. So years after that first lecture on stage and after many lectures on stage, I got married and I had 3 beautiful children. My husband is Greek American, and we were staying with my mom and dad-in-law in a small place in Greece called Trika. It's a beautiful place. And my husband was coming back and forth because his job was here in the States. And as a fiscal crisis was deepening in Greece, he started coming in the States more and more. And in the end, he was more in the States than in Greece. And I would see my children watching him pack his bags and burst into tears because they knew their daddy wouldn't be gone for a week or two. He would be gone for months. So it was time to have a discussion. I was resisting this discussion for 3 children and 7 years, but there are times when matters are mature and you need to sit down and discuss them. And we felt that it was time to have that discussion seriously. So that was when we started discussing immigration seriously, like something that we should do for the sake of our children and our family. So we decided that. Now, of course, from the moment that you decide you want to immigrate until immigration is fulfilled and you're in another country, especially when this country is the United States of America, this takes a lot of time. So it took time until I did my papers with the embassy, and that was a blessing because in that time, I had time for myself to sit down and talk with myself and ask myself questions like, okay, I'm leaving behind my friends, my family, my life as I knew it. How about my career and all that I have built? So I came at the crossroads. Do I go down the medical path again? Do I do something that is around the medical field, maybe not medicine itself? Or do I do something else? Now, as a person, I like taking informed decisions, and I am not a very big risk taker. So I wanted to make sure that I was making a decision that would serve me well, at least in my present. So I took courses on career change. I took personality tests. I was seeking for an answer. What do I become? What's my life going to be in this new country? And it was interesting because instead of an answer, I found 2 questions. And the first of them was what really shook me up. And they were in a course about career change. And I was asked, if you were to die tomorrow, what is that one dream that you have never given a chance to flourish in your life that you will deeply regret? And that really shook me up because I realized that I had seen my medical dream come to fruition in so many ways. I have reached heights that I would never even imagine. But in the back of my head, I had this dream of a little beach shop. And I also had an age in my mind at the age of 67. That's the age when you retire from the national healthcare sector in Greece. So I was like, at the age of 67, I have this dream that I will get my pension and I will have that money and I can open up a little beach shop and share my art with the world. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a dream that you have not given a chance to. And maybe now is the time to do it. Maybe now before 67, because who knows what tomorrow brings. And this planted the idea in my head. This is where everything began. There was the second question that I'd like to share with you. So the second question was, I swear it was a really upbeat course, despite the fact that these 2 questions are really serious and deep. So the second question was, when you die, what is your tombstone going to write? What's your legacy going to be in this world? And I had some really deep thinking. And it was not like I took a decision on the spot that, hey, yes, I'm leaving medicine and I'm doing this. It took me a lot of time, a lot of back and forth. And I took the final decision on the plane of immigration on that long flight. I decided that I want to give this dream a chance. And because we were coming here and I wouldn't be having any help with raising my babies, I couldn't do everything. I couldn't have my jewelry and medicine. So I decided that I want to give it a chance. And there was a lot of, my mom, my dad were worried about me. They are still worried to this day. And I had to answer questions like, what if this doesn't work out? And I think that they are relieved with the answer that I gave them, that I really don't believe there are burnt bridges until you burn them. So I told them, if I want to go back, it may take a longer road, but I can go back. And if I'm not happy, I will go back. But this is just what I want to do right now in my life. I feel a calling to do this, and I need to do it. And then that happened in 2019. It took a long time until we had our first outlet online, because in this business, we are together with my husband. He helps me a lot.
Wow. Your story is amazing. There's so many parallels to what you've done and what I've done in my life. So you remember when I was talking to you before we started the interview, I never prepare people for these interviews because people go in their heads and they don't drop into their hearts to tell their stories. What happened to you happened to me in Mexico City. I was hired as a keynote speaker at a conference, got there, the PowerPoint and the computer weren't working. And it was the one day when I delivered the best speech I ever gave, because it just came from inside of me. It really came from my heart. So that is just an amazing parallel to both of our stories. But this collection has got so many layers to it. You talked about how touching the piece anchored you back to that feeling. A lot of people don't realize that these small little things we do when we dress up actually empower us in some ways. Even just the color that you're wearing on any given day can give you courage. My power color is red. If I'm going for a job interview, if I'm doing something really important, I'll wear a red jacket or a red dress. So tell me about how you use color when you create your goddess.
So for me, color is both an inspiration and a way, like you, to tap into the feeling that I want to tap into. The inspiration. So, I was raised in Greece. I was raised in color, sunshine, blue, the sky, everything. Also the beads that are an inspiration on their own. It's not just their forms and shapes. It's also their colors that inspire me. And then I use color, like you, when I want to evoke feelings in myself. I love red. I love a red lip. It's like, for me, it's also my power move, but I kind of love every color. I think I just wake up every day and I feel like wearing a color. Blue is always a favorite of mine, probably because it anchors me back to Greece and all the memories that I have from there. But I think also every color under the rainbow has a meaning for someone. It is dopamine dressing is a thing. It has been proven that, like, I don't know if you've heard, like, if when they paint the boys' rooms like blue and the girls' rooms pink, that thing has, those colors have an effect on our psychology. Like in the kitchens, you see a lot of orange because that is supposed to be awakening your desire to eat. And then if you have blue in the kitchen, you don't want to eat so much. So color does this. But I also do believe that the things that you wear always have the meaning that you attach to them. So for me, like amulets, objects of faith, they have the meaning that we give them. And yes. I really love to tap. For me, it's a thing, I tap into them. And I'm a Christian. I tap into my cross. We have our little goddess tag on our bracelets, and for me, that's a reminder, visual, tactile reminder of the goddess within. So I like that. I was raised in this, the evil eyes. I was raised in this, but this is our culture. I understand that not every culture is like that, but I come from that. So yeah, color, amulets, that's my thing.
Now, you started a business in the middle of a pandemic. How has that been? That took a lot of courage. So I take it it's an online business. It's not an a store, brick and mortar business?
That was our biggest challenge. It was fully online, and it is to this day. I couldn't even do, one of the most important aspects for a business is to communicate with the customer. Much like you with your big but you had to cut it to make the little pillows, like you had this big fabric that you hand painted, but you had to come in touch with your customers so that you would see that they didn't want that big fabric to make maybe dresses, but they want something else. And then that grandma, can she meet my grandma and send her over to maybe give me some advice? It's been hard because we couldn't communicate with our customers. All communication was online through Instagram, and we have been homeschooling all our three children years straight. They will be going back to school this August, so it's been a thing. I couldn't go out of the house. I couldn't do any shows, and it has been hard, but I have been blessed with such support online from other women that it is beyond words. For me, online communities have helped me a lot. And then, of course, I think all of us, we need to acknowledge where we're coming from. My husband has been such a help through all this. He could feed our family. I have food on my table. It is totally different than a woman who has to put food on her table through a pandemic and her only livelihood is an online business. Hats off to these moms. I don't know how they have done it, because I know several that have. I had the blessing of doing it with the luxury of having food on my table and not having that agony. Are we going to have something to eat tomorrow? So it's been hard, but I acknowledge that it's not nearly been as hard as other people and what they had to go through.
Yeah.
It's cutting out.
So my last question for you is this. If time was an illusion and I could take you into your future, you're now 100 years old. Oh, you can hear me?
Yes, I'm 100 years old.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
I can.
Vicky, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, so you can hear what I'm saying. I thought you said the sound had cut out. All right, so if time was an illusion, if time was an illusion and your past, your present, your future was here in the same timeline, and I could take you into the future to have a conversation with the 100-year-old you, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you this far based on how you're living your life?
Ooh, well, 100-year-old Vicky, I want you to know that I am sorry that I haven't taken very good care of you for the past 6 or 7 years, that I let a lot of my habits lapse. And I didn't go to the gym, and I was not doing what I should be doing in terms of my eating. But now at this age, I want to tell you that I am committed to building up my health. And I hope that you at 100 years old can see how I made my best from this age and on to have you as healthy as possible, and to have you surrounded by people that love you and inspire you. And I want you, Vicky, of 100 years old, to know that I am building these relationships for you now, much like I was building my relationships from the age of 6 years old till now, because I have the same friends all these years. So yeah, that's what I want my 100-year-old self to know, that I'm doing my best so that she is in the best place possible. And if you have to share anything with me, please come. Please come share.
And find your beads on nextdoorgoddess.com, correct?
Yes, they can find our jewelry at www.nextdoorgoddess.com, and they can check us out on Instagram too at nextdoorgoddess with an underscore.
Fantastic. Vicky, thank you so much for coming online today and sharing your amazing story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excited to see where this business will go going forwards. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle movement is attracting some amazing and inspirational women who are changing careers, reinventing themselves. But Vicky, you are an example of somebody who's living life to the full. I commend you for that. It takes a lot of courage to change careers. And now you're doing something that will help you look after your kids, be at home, but tap into your one true love and passion. And that's a beautiful thing to observe and see. Thank you so much for coming online and sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thank you, Vicky. Okay.
I truly believe in that color really affects your moods, how you react to people, how you respond. You know, when you have on drab colors, everybody's into black. I don't quite get it. But anyway, everybody loves black. And I'm like,
oh,
really?
You're like me, Terry. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get the need for black as a color. I never wear black unless I'm going to a funeral. Or if I do have black on, I always splash on some color just to break the darkness.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I love it.
But
all right.
So
let me see if I can line up the next video while you read the bio. I think I've got it now.
And who was it?
Laura.
Oh, I hope I didn't just delete Laura.
She'll be in your email.
Okay, I'm trying to. Oh, I think I did. Let me see. Okay, where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Okay, I was messing around with my computer. So I hope I haven't deleted her. Was she on with, no, she wasn't on with Aaron. Yep, I have it. She was on with Aaron. Laura Keeley, or Kelly. Laura is a barista, trial lawyer, an entrepreneur with a blue chip legal and business background as a top tier corporate lawyer, company director, business advisor, and in-house counsel for listed corps. A qualified arbitrator and specialist in corporate law and complex commercial litigation. Laura was awarded Innovator of the Year by the Women's Barista Association in 2020 for her work in pioneering online mediation. Laura was also awarded and Most Influential Lawyer Change Maker in 2021 for her work in pioneering online dispute resolutions. I present to you Miss Laura Keeley.
In mediation, I was an M&A lawyer doing public and private mergers and acquisitions, and probably the largest deal that I did was at Slaughter & May, where I did a £4 billion merger between Hilton International and Hilton US. When I'd been at the bar for about 3 years, having come from a corporate deal-making background, I noticed that in the mid-market there was a real problem, and that was that I couldn't resolve issues for my clients effectively, mainly because they'd often spent so much on the process and the lawyers that it was worth more than the dispute. And so it was really difficult to settle things, which is something I felt passionate about doing. And so I really started a mediation to try to resolve that gap that people in the mid-market found, and to try to improve accessibility to justice through using technology. We were asked to support the Federal Court and the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, and also to run the first ever global moot, being a law competition on the platform, which doesn't sound very big, but basically we had 2,000 people come onto the platform from 30 countries in 10 minutes. And ran over 500 hearings in the course of 5 days, which had never been done before. What all that meant was, for me personally, I literally just worked every day. So I worked for 50 to 60 days in a row prior to Easter in 2020. And then after that, continued to work 6 or 7 days a week on and off for the next 2 to 3 years. There was at one stage I decided that 6 days was really the maximum that I should be doing. But the impact on my family was enormous, because we've got 2 teenage children, and it was really hard. I guess I would say that being a founder is not for the faint-hearted, and particularly being a sole founder. A lot of people ask me how I've done that, and sometimes I genuinely don't know the answer. I guess I've done it by having an amazing team, and the team and the investors really are what has made this journey worthwhile, no matter what the outcome. The hardships range from just general financial pressure when you're trying to start a business and bootstrap it, through to just the sense of it never ending and there always being something else that you need to manage. And then I'm now a tech founder, so I've sort of had the triple whammy of male-dominated industries, which I actually really quite enjoy. I don't mind it because I'm used to it, but what I do notice is that it's still a problem. It's still a problem for women, and we do endeavour at a mediation to do something about that. We try to effect change through affirmative action policies, both in terms of our hiring and also the way that we give work to arbitrators and mediators when we receive it. And I tell the team, in particular the technology team, that they need to proactively look for diverse hires, and that's something that we feel very, very passionate about. We are the first and only dispute resolution ecosystem on the market. And what I mean by that is it's an online dispute resolution offering that really covers the field. So we are trying to provide a technology solution for courts and also for dispute resolution providers out of court, as well as improving processes. So not just digitizing old processes, but also transforming the system to try to move it along into the next century. And by that, providing accessibility and sustainability in dispute resolution that is really quite new. We also provide services, so everything from the provision of mediators and arbitrators through to actually wholesale system change through early facilitation and triage of disputes for government bodies and others. So I think we're the only really comprehensive offering in the dispute resolution, or online dispute resolution market. When I started a mediation, there were a number of things driving me. It was a push and a pull. And part of the push was I just can't live with this system and not do anything about it. And also the pull was, if I've had this idea and I don't do something about it, I'm going to feel really annoyed with myself later when it happens, because it was obvious to me that the system would digitize. So there was both of those factors. But Also, as a parent, I thought this is possibly the most important thing I can do, which is stop people flying around the world to resolve disputes, because that's incredibly inefficient, both from a financial perspective and also from a carbon perspective.
And this is yet another example of a fascinating entrepreneur, a woman who is out there in the corporate world in a male-dominated environment, branching out into IT from law. Laura, welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. What a fascinating story. I can't wait to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you, Gertrude. And it's great to be speaking to you in Melbourne. It's great.
Now, you have lived an interesting life. You spent many, many years as a corporate lawyer, and now you've broken into the tech field, combining your law skills with technology. Where did this idea come from? Was this because of the COVID pandemic? Was it an idea that you had all along that was brewing and then the timing was right?
Good question, Gertrude. So I launched in 2017 prior to the pandemic. And I guess one interesting thing, particularly for the American audience, that may be different about our legal system is that we have two types of practicing lawyers. One is a solicitor, which is more of a large law firm lawyer who also conducts litigation. And in my case, I was a transactional lawyer in Melbourne and London. And then I became the second type of lawyer, which is called a barrister, an in-court advocate, and a trial and appellate attorney. So I really went from one type of law to an entirely different stream as an advocate. And it was really the combination of those two skill sets, both business and then litigation, that led me to the idea and the realization that the dispute resolution and court profession needed to digitize, and that there were a lot of inefficiencies, both financial and also environmental inefficiencies in the way we were conducting business. Ironically, this was actually in 2017 prior to the pandemic. And so the first 2 years I was evangelizing really about why, from the client's perspective and from the community's perspective, we needed to use technology. And then the pandemic arrived, and all of a sudden a very resistant profession started to listen. They started to listen because they had no choice but to keep operating through technology like ours. And so it became, I guess, evident to a lot of people that things that I'd been saying were true, and that now we're in a phase where we need to continue to build on the amazing benefits of the technology transformation that's taken place in the industry over the past 3 years.
Now, I know that 4% of VC funds go towards female startups. What were the challenges that you faced in building this technology? Was it difficult? Did you manage to enroll investors quickly and easily? And what tips do you have for another female who's trying to break into this?
I seem to have in my skill set the ability to raise money. And I think it's a combination of being an advocate and also being a business lawyer, in that I understand very complex corporate finance ideas, and then I can translate them into a message because I've been trained as a barrister. So I think the combination of those things meant that it wasn't difficult for me to raise as a skill set. Is one that I found came relatively naturally. What is difficult about raising is that period between when you have the idea and then the execution of the idea. So you need the funding, particularly for a woman often. That's a rash generalization, but is often the case that you may not necessarily have your own independent wealth to the same level that perhaps your male counterparts may have. And so therefore you need that money in order to execute your idea. And so there's a gap. In order to be able to prove its value proposition, you need to have done some work. And sometimes, or often, you may need to raise money in order to prove that it can work. So getting over that hurdle was very difficult. And I had support of a team and others, but ultimately I had to convince people that there was a market, that there was a value proposition, and that I was the right founder to deliver that. In terms of hints for other people, I think the thing that I probably didn't do enough of, and I wish I had done, is research the capital raising industry more. I didn't really understand the difference between venture capital and growth equity, for example. Even though I'd lived it, I understood it superficially, but I didn't understand it in the sense of what it meant for me as a founder, what proportions of equity I should retain, and the way that Series B through E works. I didn't understand enough about that. And so I probably made some early mistakes in the way that we took capital that are still playing out now in terms of our cap table, probably not being as consolidated as it ought to be. The good news is that because I'm a sole founder, I'm in the same position as I would have been had I had multiple founders. And so it all works out in the end. Hopefully that's of some use, Gertrude.
Wow. No, that's very, very useful, because I'm actually at that point myself in trying to raise funds for the application for our movement. And I'm facing those kind of challenges, the lack of knowledge, the lack of skills. Now, throughout your career, you seem to be somebody who is always forging forward, breaking barriers. What has been the biggest challenge for you when you were in that corporate setting? And how did you overcome those challenges to get to who you are right now?
I think in the corporate setting, at the time when I had my first child, I came back from London and we had our first child, and nobody in the mergers and acquisitions market, generally speaking, was doing part-time work in large transactions. And so I was at that time faced with needing to try to persuade large law firm partners that was the right thing for me and it was the right thing for them. So this is around the 2006, 2007 mark. And that was really hard because it was the first time when I realized that the fact that I was a woman was going to impact on my career. I faced that challenge actually by moving firms and finding one that I thought would be more open-minded, and also being incredibly flexible in the way that we ran our lives. And I was fortunate to have support of my husband, who left his role in the same type of job to take an academic career, which made it more flexible. And also just realizing that I had to learn the skill set of balancing everything. So that was sort of the first challenge. Once I'd got through that, first child and second child in the early days, I felt freer to then get on and have the career that I really wanted, which was to be my own independent advocate. And in Australia, when you are a trial or appellate attorney as a barrister, you're a sole trader. So that was also very challenging because I didn't necessarily fit the mold of people who go to the bar, we call it going to the bar, out of a large firm, because I'd been an M&A lawyer and I was also a woman. So that came with its own interesting challenges of making sure that I could stand on my own 2 feet, which I did. I guess the main message that I would give is, 2 messages. One is of support and the need really to have one parent. When in my situation, I had to have the other parent be able to drop everything for the children. And that was what enabled me to do what I did. And the other was the realization, probably in mid-pandemic, when I was really working hard, that if I didn't look after myself, my own mental and physical well-being, that everything would crumble and that everything depended on me being fit and healthy. And so I prioritized my own personal fitness and mental health above everything, above work, above kids, above family, which sounds very selfish, but actually what it did was transform us into a much stronger, better position, because I knew that I could withstand the pressure that I was under much better when I was at peak performance. And it's not to say it's perfect, but it certainly made a massive impact for us.
Yeah, a lot of women forget to put the oxygen tank on themselves first. We're so busy trying to look after the children, look after the family, go to work. And I think that's a real wake-up call to all of us to remember that unless you are vibrant and healthy and your mental state of mind is good, you're no use to anybody else. So
that's right.
take me into the future a little bit in terms of where you see this platform going and where you see your career going as well.
We envision that all disputes will be on our platform. And so what that means is we're trying to transform justice from both ends. What I mean by that is we're trying to make the court system better and more efficient and faster and able to be accessed by people more readily, because there are billions of people who do not have effective access to court systems. The problem I have with that is that if people can't access the court system, it means that it undermines the rule of law. If the court's only there for rich companies and wealthy individuals, then it's not really there at all. So that's point one. Point two is that we're trying to resolve disputes more effectively outside of court, again, to decrease pressure on the court system. What all of that means is that we're driving for all disputes to be resolved on a singular best practice platform, which is ours, and to make sure that all of the things that clients and lawyers need are dealt with effectively. So an example of that is to make sure that client-lawyer privilege is protected in the way that we undertake and manage the technology, so that there's no risk of breach, and we do that in quite a unique way. So I guess that's the future for us, is making sure that we can transform that system effectively, holistically, and making sure that it's client-centric, so the community is at the heart of everything that we do, and also that we look after the legal profession. What that means for me personally is I've probably got, a good 5 or more years of entrepreneurship ahead of me. I'm building a terrific team of executives. The last year has been absolutely transformative because I suddenly have experts at the head of about 8 key functions in the business, which is enabling me to step away from the day-to-day operations and up into the strategy, which is where I really like to be. I'm not anywhere near ready to have a sort of portfolio career yet. So I'm hoping that I can really enjoy that journey over the next 5 or so years.
I love that, because a lot of times we get caught in the trenches of doing the work and we don't build the team around us to support us. So you're getting to that point where you can work on your business and not in it, correct?
That's right. And I see my job as if I'm most effective, I'm actually finding people that are smarter than me and enabling them. That's really the entire job. And as soon as I realized that and was able to afford the people who were able to deliver that, then everything changed. That's another thing about the early fundraising, is that you can't really afford the people who have the skill sets to do what needs to be done effectively. So you're sort of scrambling around, whether you're a technical founder or a subject matter expert founder like me, that there's always a gap that you have, and you're scrambling around trying to plug the gap and sort of beg, borrow, or steal the expertise. So once you kind of scramble through that period and get to a point of stability, things feel much easier, even though they're still hard.
It's just a challenging chicken and egg situation, right?
It is. And particularly for, I think that the story of the female founder who raises capital on their own is very rare, mainly because if you're also running your second career. So I practiced as an advocate until February this year. So I had 4 and a bit years of doing 2 full-time jobs. And so if you have that and you're a full-time parent and you don't have any relief from any of those, then that's why I think for women it just becomes an almost impossible hurdle to overcome. So you've got to have the other person who can help you.
I love that. Now, who would you say was the biggest influence in your life?
Honestly, probably my father, who's no longer with us, just because largely his work ethic, both of my parents, but mainly him, in the way that he sort of taught me about how to do something properly has really driven me. It's just always the mantra that I live by. And then there have been a number of very important, I have to say, actually largely men, older men that I've been lucky enough to work with along the way in law firms and at the bar, who have helped shape the way that I see myself, and given me, I guess, insight and courage into what I was good at, and has enabled me to sort of then take the steps that I needed to take in my own professional self to be able to step into the various roles that I've had over the past 5 to 7 years in particular, because you have to break out of what you're told, what the stories are that you're told about yourself in order to become an entrepreneur, because we're very attached to the stories of being a good girl and being a professional and doing everything right by everybody and making sure that we say and do the right things and don't ruffle any feathers. And in order to actually disrupt and take a chance and say, I'm going to do something else, and actually largely I think that things in this profession could be better, I had to really break down that internal stereotype of myself. So I'm just going to reject it. And it took a lot of encouragement, I guess, and belief in myself, largely forged by relationships with others, to be able to step into that role and just let go of all the old shit that I was carrying around about what good women do and what good women don't do.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we are our own worst critics. That little voice in our heads that run us, the things that we think we should be doing, or the expectations society puts on us as women as well. So
Exactly.
I'm really glad that you've brought that up, to just make women aware that that little voice in your head, you have to quiet it down. And again, your ego is trying to protect you from getting hurt, from making a mistake. And what I've learned to do with the little voice is just say, thank you, I hear you, but I've got to do this. And then you just forge on and really just start believing in yourself.
Well, the patriarchy is so ingrained in us, I think, that we don't even realize it's there. So a lot of the messaging that we tell ourselves, we don't even realize was put there by our environment. And so we think it's actually us telling ourselves what we should and shouldn't do, but it's just been put there for us. And once you start to question those assumptions, there's another podcast. I'm not sure if you're aware of the one called Unfuck Your Brain, which talks a lot about the patriarchal assumptions that we're raised with and how to start recognizing when they come up. I found that incredibly useful, and how to start giving yourself new messages when you hear them. But you have to tune into the fact that they're there first and realize that that's what's happening, or at least it was for me. It may not be the same for everyone, in which case go those women, but it certainly was for me.
Yeah, I think it's very subliminal, and you're very not conscious that it's there for most women. I totally agree with you there. So now, if I could take you into the future, you're now 100 years old. You're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your dogs, your cats, your grandchildren. And if you could look back on your life and the amazing things you've achieved and have a conversation with the older you, based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to that wise woman?
I'm looking forward to that. I think about that quite a bit, because I feel like I'm living my best life now, and there's lots of reasons for that. It's difficult. I think what I would say to myself is, aren't we glad that we did the things, that we took the risks and we had the fun and we lived our life to the fullest, because, we only had one shot at it and we did the best we could. It wasn't always perfect, but we had a lot of fun along the way. And the thing that is of the most inherent value to me at the moment is not the entrepreneurship and the potential of a large exit or any of that. It's actually the team, the relationships that I have with my team, the fact that I created the team. The team is broader than just the executives. It's the shareholders and the investors and the community that we have. And that's where I derive my joy from. And so I'm very glad that I gave myself the opportunity to experience all of that.
Now that you are at this point, who should be contacting you if they want to get more information about this new technology? How can people spread the word so that we can get this to go much further afield than it is already?
So the people that can really make an impact for us are partners of litigation firms or managing partners of any type of firm, people with a responsibility within a law firm who have the ability to direct us in the right way. And that's in any market, particularly focused on Australia, New Zealand, the US and the UK markets, which we're really focused on right now. Anyone who works inside court administration or dispute resolution, such as arbitral or mediation centres, we are talking to those all around the world. And also general counsel or in-house counsel of any kind who would like to find out about how we can make dispute resolution more effective for them and their corporate, and take pressure off the general counsel team. We'd love to hear from any of you.
Fantastic. Now I've got your website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So if anybody out there is listening in, please get in touch with Laura's firm and let's help get this platform to reach more people, create better lives for both those people who are working in the law profession and those needing their help as well. So Laura, is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't?
I guess what I would say to women who are thinking about a journey like this, it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, I would say, you know, if you have the idea, you need to try to go for it and overcome the fear that will inherently be there inside you, and don't let that be the thing that stops you. On the other hand, I would say you need to be prepared for the fact that it's relentless. It doesn't go away. And once you've taken investors' money, it's a one-way street. And the only way through that is to succeed or fail and to keep going until one of those two things happens. So it's just about being aware that it's not very glamorous and that you've got to have the support in place. But if you've got all of that, then you just have to go for it and you won't look back, particularly if you are a woman who's been in a service industry and feels constrained by the limitations that places on you. I think entrepreneurship is a fantastic journey for people like that.
Thank you for this interview, Laura. Thank you for the inspiration that you bring to the world of women in business. If anybody out there is wanting to see how to do this, we got so many tips, so many ideas. I'm currently in a cohort that's teaching me to get investor ready, the jargon, understanding what it means to be in front of this world. It's not that easy. And what you said at the end is also really pivotal, that when you do take on funding and you bring on investors, it's almost like selling part of your soul. So be prepared that the baby is not your baby anymore, right?
That's right.
You have to let go of some of that control. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this interview. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Be back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have an amazing day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Gertrude. That's lovely.
When I'd been at the bar for about 3 years, having come from a corporate deal-making background, I noticed.
Okay, I think my video looped to the beginning there.
It did. Yeah.
Wow, Ms. Terry, this has been awesome. This brings us to the end of our summit for the month of September. We will be back again at the end of October, the 20th to the 30th of October. So if you are somebody who has a story to share, please go onto our website, register to speak. We're looking for more stories that we can share around the world. Use your voice for good. If you are a woman in business, an entrepreneur, It could be a health and wellness challenge that you were able to overcome. Family and relationships, creativity, social justice. So if you can dance, come and join us with your dancing. If you can sing, come and sing. So we will end today with music again. And a quick thank you to the custodians of this amazing country in Australia, the ancestors of the original people of Australia who have made it possible here. Terry, for holding space with me throughout this summit. They say that stories need ears. Our stories need to breathe, but if there's no one there listening to them, they don't exist. So I honor you, my sister. I love you. You are just one of the most phenomenal women I've ever met. I will see you again soon, Terry, when I come back to the United States.
You will, most definitely.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you so much for
Bye.
tuning in. Bye.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and we are back again with an amazing lineup of speakers. The HerStory Online Summit runs for 11 days every single month, and we bring you women who talk about business and entrepreneurship, health and wellness, family and relationships, creativity, social justice, and spirituality. So before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. I would also like to pay respect to all of my ancestors whose shoulders I stand on as I do this work as a social impact serial social entrepreneur. So our vision with HerStory is to impact as many women and children across the globe as possible. We raise money for social impact by curating these stories into a series of books, magazines. We have a podcast. So please go onto our website, theherstorycircle.com, contribute, donate if you like, step up and come and speak and be a part of this amazing movement. So we're going to start every single summit with this beautiful song that was sung by a group of women who started a movement to bring women together and try and bring an end to all these wars that are devastating our world. So thank you for sharing this song. Thank you for allowing us to sing it with you wherever we are in the world. So here we go.
This is a call to all our sisters, the women of the world, to take part in the creation of a new video clip. War is not a woman's game. For too many years, we have been collaborating with the patriarchal narrative, believing that armies and bombs keep us safe. For too long, we have been stripped of our liberty by the story of separation. This is not our language. It is not our way. War is not a woman's game. It is time for the givers of life to protect it. Women of Ukraine, you are not alone. Women of Russia, you you're not alone. Women of Palestine, you are not alone. Women of Syria,